Good afternoon, guys. This month's podcast, I'm trying to look at this whole area of living with shame, and it's something that a lot of people are living with, which they never bothered to address, and they go on living with this condition for the rest of their lives. One of the meanings that I came up with for this very sad, painful condition was feeling under a sentence for a crime that you've never committed. If you feel that shame in your life, you often feel perhaps less human, not being able to be who you really are. Some of the conditions associated with shame are someone who basically has experienced post-traumatic stress disorder, some really toxic major event in your past that have left you with a lot of feelings of horror and sadness, resentment, pain, depression. Also, people who've got various phobias in their life sometimes feel ashamed. Perhaps they feel some phobia about spiders, snakes, or it can be all kinds of things, and you're afraid to kind of admit that to other people. Maybe you've got anger problems that you can't control because of the shame, whether that's been an event or a reoccurring condition. And obviously you've got low self-esteem, where you're struggling with the fact that you don't feel that you are worthy the same of other people. Maybe you've got eating disorders because of what's happened to you related to the shame. And then obviously the anxiety, the worry and the stress that's connected with this condition. Or maybe you use escapes like alcohol, drugs in order to cope with living with this, and you feel that that's going to give you some relief from it. Maybe you want to keep busy all the time, thinking that it'll go away if just I put my mind on other things. So shame is about obviously how you feel, think, look, behave, and what you say. And as we said, some of the causes then could be past trauma. A lot of people are struggling with traumatic situations and circumstances, not just in the past of what happened to them perhaps long ago, but also recently. Some of the examples would be maybe you suffered some child abuse, and there's a lot of secretness attached to what happened. You've got very unhealthy negative thoughts and feelings because of what happened, and it creates in you a false sense of self. Or it may be that you feel some shame because of a bereavement. Somebody has died who you felt the last words that you had with them was not very positive, and you feel guilty that they've died and you haven't been able to ask them for your forgiveness. Or maybe you've lost a job and you've not realised that it's the job that's redundant, but you feel as a human being that you've been made to feel redundant because of how you left that company or how you've been treated. Or maybe in school you've been asked to leave school, or they don't want you there anymore because you caused trouble and they don't understand you, and they don't realise how you feel, and they don't seem to have the time, or they're not interested. So the person suffering with shame obviously views themselves as incompetent thing, not even a human being. Someone who's got some disgust, flawed, damaged behaviour, and you feel broken. You don't feel valued as a human being. And there are obviously feelings of rejection that you're feeling that you're having to hide away, and some guilt and this abandonment, feeling completely alone due to the impact of what's happened that caused the shame, and you don't feel you can tell anyone because you can't trust them and you don't know what will happen if you do talk about it. So some people who feel shame often blame themselves for the past negative, painful experiences, feelings that are often personalised. So whatever anybody says to you that's negative in the present day, you take it very personally because you feel that criticism and blame is what you've experienced that has created some of this shame. So any criticism towards you is taken very personally, and that your thoughts tell you that no one will ever love you because of what's happened to you. But I want to remind you that they're just thoughts, they're not beliefs. They don't have to become beliefs in your life. But as long as you dwell on them, and as long as you start to believe them, then they will continue to take root in your life. So these negative thoughts become part of your ingrained thinking, which influences your daily mood. For instance, one minute you can be really up, feeling positive, the next minute you're feeling really down due to the experiences and not being able to feel in control of yourself. So you're unable to avoid being a victim, and that's how you feel of what's happened to you, a victim from others' actions towards you. And it makes you very vulnerable, because you're thinking, what happens if this happens again? How can I protect myself? How does anybody understand how I'm really feeling, what I'm thinking? Are there any answers to deal with this shame? Am I ever going to get rid of it? So some examples for coping strategies with male and female. Some boys or young men often experience a lot of shame, so they act out really aggressively to other people, or they're trying to get even with their perpetrators, so they start scapegoating or blaming innocent people, and they're unable to control themselves, and the slightest thing that's said wrong or the way somebody looks at them, they react. They're unable to not take it personally. And often girls are known to withdraw and be very quiet and internalise their feelings of shame, and they're unable to express anything, so they hide away. So there's some of the stereotypes, but it's not always like that, but that is often a condition and the difference between male and female. So shame behaviour, as we've said, is a need to hide away and avoid any wrongdoing, which just increases the thoughts that others will not want me around. So you're constantly looking over your shoulder and being on your guard, having to justify yourself to others with everything you say and do, which is really draining. And it's really hard work. And you often feel inferior to others. You feel that other people are better than you, that they were put on this earth to do greater things, to have more skills, better knowledge, more experience, and to achieve more than you because of what's happened to you. And some of the thoughts that your body are often seen as damaged, and this creates further worry for you in coping with daily life. So you end up putting on what's called masks, these emotional masks, when you're with different people. And some young people have a mask that they put on with their mates at school, with the teachers, with people out of school, with their parents. And maybe you're one of these people, you're unable to kind of be who you are and take that mask off because of the exposure to being criticised, condemned, misunderstood, which makes you feel further shame and embarrassment. So the messages you often get are that I'll receive further rejection if I take these masks off, or I'll be further embarrassed. Because the thoughts that you're struggling with is no one else cares about me because I feel responsible for the past actions that have created my shame. And often maybe you feel that you will be punished again by other people for what's happened to you, or maybe you're in fear of seeing the abuser again or struggling to leave them behind. Maybe they're harassing you, maybe they're pestering you, and you're unable to do anything about it. So the silence in your life reinforces the shame. It doesn't go away, it's something that you know is always there. So to be positive, I want you to think now about how can you start to deal with this condition of shame. Well, first of all, obviously admit that you've got a problem. No matter how proud you feel, admit you've got a problem and try and find someone that you trust to talk to. And if you don't feel there is anybody, then how about going to a counsellor, a professional, somebody you can talk to in confidence that's not going to repeat what you say, that's not going to talk behind your back or use anything against you or blame you for your past. So it's important to find someone who's not going to judge you. And be aware of the triggers from your past shameful feelings. Maybe language that other people use that remind you of what your perpetrator said. Or perhaps people who look similar that you see to your abuser. Or places you go to, or social media or TV. So what you need to do is to challenge those abusive thoughts by saying, this is not the perpetrator, these are just things and people that I have to not allow to continue to ruin my life and make me feel the way I do. So what I want to say is it's important to address the injustices in your life. You're faced with problems of why me? What about other people who suffer? How can I bring some justice? What does this mean? So you can bring some justice by talking to someone in confidence who's going to be able to help you, like a counsellor or a friend. You can actually perhaps write a book, maybe one day, or maybe have an interview with someone and tell them what's happened to you and how you've been able to help yourself, so that other people can learn how they can help themselves, so that you can bring some hope to people who suffer with this awful shame. And it is hard dealing with injustices when you feel nobody in authority is going to be able to change anything. But by getting together with other people who've struggled with what you have, maybe you can do a lot as a group. Maybe you can do quite a bit by working and sharing together. The other thing you can do is to keep a shame box, a box where you can put all the shameful incidents, experiences that have happened to you in that box. And then I'd like you to ask yourself, what can I do with this? Well, what you can do with it, you can destroy it, but the important thing is maybe to take it to that place or near that place where the shame took place and destroy it there, and to say, I'm leaving that past painful, traumatic experience behind me because I'm not going to allow it to control me anymore. It's in that box and it's done and it's finished. And I'd like to tell you that your shame is only part of who you are. It's not you as a person. It's not your identity. It's not what you were put on this earth to be. It's only a small part of your life where you have been in the wrong place at the wrong time and felt helpless and powerless and not able to do anything about what was going on for you. So you need to take back self-control. So remember, it's not what happened to you that enabled you to carry feelings of shame, but how you had to respond to it in that toxic situation and circumstances, because you felt alone, powerless, helpless. But you don't need to stay there. You can move on with your life. So the important thing then for personal safety skills is to learn to manage your feelings, to be able to express these painful, difficult feelings with someone you trust, and also to be able to use something in your life like writing down the facts, doing some poetry, some music, some art, where you can express some of that shame, to get it out, to be able to not allow it to fester inside you and to make you feel depressed. And you need to set personal boundaries for the future and for the present, that you are not going to allow people to behave in a particular way to you anymore. You're not going to put yourself in situations where you feel vulnerable and where you can't speak out, but you're going to give people consistent messages of what they are allowed to say and do to you and what they're not. And you're going to be consistent with that. And maybe that requires quite a lot of work. this is where you'll probably need someone to help you with setting these personal boundaries. But they're important because they will help you to get back control in your life and to feel empowered as a human being again. And we call it being assertive, learning to be able to deal with power from other people, recognizing that you've got the power within you, even though it's been perhaps crushed by this shameful past experience. You've got that power and you can take that control back and you can use it for good. So you can learn to educate yourself in that way and to help others who've been victims. The other thing that will help you is relaxation exercises. Maybe when you start to feel stressed, angry, and the feelings start to come back and you start to feel overwhelmed about the past experience of shame, to take those deep breaths that I've mentioned before through your mouth, through your nose, and then slowly count to 10 and breathe them out through your mouth. And maybe tell yourself as you're breathing out that power, I'm in control again, I'm in control. And that will help you to get in touch with your feelings and your thoughts and your real self again. And it's called stress management. Learning that stress is only created by worry and anxiety, but if you're in control of that, then you don't need to worry about being overstressed and overwhelmed because you're able to manage yourself. And then you need to deal with your core beliefs. What are those core beliefs? Perhaps that shameful experience and situation, maybe that perpetrator told you things that you've not been able to forget, that you've carried with you for quite a while, or maybe that event has given you some core beliefs that you felt, I've got to believe this, it might be true. Well, I'm telling you that it's not true. So the way to deal with that is to recognize that it's just thoughts, that it doesn't have to be beliefs, and you need to challenge those thoughts. So we call this self-talk. Tell yourself the opposite to what you've always believed that's negative about yourself and about that shameful situation. And maybe again you need someone to help you with this. And then finally, I just want to mention being able to make sense of the past, of what's happened to you, will help you to move on with your life. So if you're not able to face up to the shame and what happened to you and to work through it with someone you trust or a professional, you will perhaps start to repeat the same behaviour and the same situation that has happened in the past, because you've got to make sense and understand the past in order to move on in the present and the future. So I hope what I've said today helps some of you who are living and struggling with this awful problem of shame, and I hope you're able to get help fairly soon and not to go on struggling and believing that it's your fault, and also blaming yourself for it because it's not your fault. You're a really valuable, positive, lovely human being, but you're just not able to see it, and you need someone to help you to recognise those facts. So I hope to talk to you again next month. Take care and have a good week. Bye for now.